Hi everyone and Happy New Year! I'd like to wish you all an amazing 2025 and may it finally be the year for the return of Prototype. So, to start the year, I want to go back to Prototype 3 and talk about some of the challenges and obstacles in creating a game like this. Upon hearing that, I think some of you might say, well obviously the biggest challenge is Activision has shut down Radical Entertainment, so there's no one to make Prototype 3 anymore. Which is true, yeah? But that's not the purpose of this video, okay? That subject has been done to death by so many people on YouTube already, and I'm not going to repeat it again here. Imagine this hypothetical scenario. Let's say Phil Spencer, or whoever's in charge of Xbox, decided one day that Prototype would make a return. He brought back Radical Entertainment, or assembled a brand new team and told them to make Prototype 3. In this case, what are the challenges of making this game, and what can they do to ensure the success of it? That is the topic we'll discuss today. There are two main subjects I want to bring up, story and gameplay. Now, unlike some of my previous videos, I will address the story first, then the gameplay after, since a lot of things in this story section have already been said by me before. I'll just recompile those points and put them here. If you have watched my stuff in the past, you'll be able to recognize them. I will instead focus more in the gameplay section, as it ties directly to my Prototype 3 ideas video, which will be scheduled to come out later this year, so please look forward to that one. Okay, enough rambling, let's get right to the first section, the story. Alright, the first and biggest question we need to ask right now is how will they continue the story? We all know at the end of Prototype 2, Alex Mercer was presumably dead, and the story ended in a pretty lame and left-hanging fashion. So what should the devs do in the sequel to make the fans interested in the story again? Of course, there are many ways you can deal with this problem, depending on how talented and gifted of a writer you are. But in my opinion, there's one thing we should do first and foremost, and that is to bring Alex Mercer back. Here's the thing, I know some of you fans out there want to take the current story and steer it in a different direction in the sequel. Something along the lines of, oh, Alex is dead and gone now, we should play as a new character in Prototype 3 and move on without him. Unfortunately, I would have to disagree with this idea for the simple reason that almost everybody likes Alex Mercer. I don't really know why that is exactly, but he is by far the biggest draw of this franchise. If you manage to bring Alex back in a meaningful way, more people will pay attention to this game, thus generating more hype and higher sales numbers. Therefore, to me, his return would ensure the best outcome for this game. And to take one step further, I would even say that he should also be the protagonist of Prototype 3 as well, not just as a cameo or a side character or anything like that. It might be a controversial take to some, but I firmly believe this truly is the best way. Okay, now we have decided to bring Alex back, which means the next and obvious question would be, how exactly are we gonna do that? Throughout the years, there has been a lot of attempts in finding a solution to this problem from the Prototype community, like the famous arm theory for example, where people theorize that since Alex could regenerate from a mere puddle, he could do the same from the arms that Hella ripped out of him. These theories are quite interesting, and I myself even made a video about this a while ago. You can check it out if you haven't. In short though, I simply don't agree with any of them because their argument and explanation is not satisfying enough for me. So, what I did is I just came up with my own solution for it. It goes something like this. We would just say that the evil Alex Mercer in Prototype 2 is not the same Alex Mercer we play as in Prototype 1, and this is actually an imposter that took his place. Please note that the imposter is not an alternative version of Alex Mercer or his clone of some sort. This is a complete separate entity that has no relation to him whatsoever. Somewhere between the first and second game, this being somehow managed to get a hold of his DNA and using it to transform into a new Alex Mercer with a slightly different face and voice. This entity then used the newly created disguise to hide behind all the atrocity that happened in Prototype 2 and blame everything on him for whatever reason. As for Alex Mercer himself, during the event of him killing Autumn in the comic, another mysterious turn of events happened right afterwards, which made him decide not to take over the world anymore, then he went on hiatus again. These two key moments would explain the non-involvement of Alex Mercer in Prototype 2, thus paving a way for his return in Prototype 3 without ruining his original character. Problem solved. Now, you might be wondering about the identity of this so-called being and the detail of the above event, right? Like I've said before, I'll save them for my Prototype 3 ideas video, which again, will probably come out later on this year. And when it does, I hope you guys will enjoy it just as much as I am making it. Anyway, back to the video. In summary, I believe this Alex Mercer situation is the biggest hurdle of Prototype 3 story. Therefore, if the devs manage to bring him back with the way he used to be and make him the protagonist, they damn sure can deliver to us a pretty compelling story moving forward. With that done, one other question some of you might want to ask is, okay, it's cool that Alex will become the protagonist again, but what about James Heller? Are you going to put him as a side character in this one? And what are you going to do with Pariah? Which role does he have in Prototype 3? Well, to properly answer this question, we need to move on to the gameplay section, which will start right now. So, with Prototype 3's story, I think our community pretty much got it covered with tons of interesting ideas and theories that can last us a lifetime worth of material, but when it comes to the gameplay, I feel like we're a bit lacking on this department. To be honest, there aren't many extensive gameplay ideas for Prototype 3 aside from these two guys, and whenever I see a new one coming out, they always seem to fall into the same trap that has barely ever gone noticed by anyone. So what is this trap that I'm talking about? I actually have a name for it. It is called the 3-2 trap.
What?
Yeah, I know it sounds kinda silly, but I didn't manage to come up with a better name for it. Sorry about that. Anyway, to quickly break it down, the trap contains 3 issues that have the word 2 at the beginning of their name. We'll start right off with issue number 1, too little. This is a type of issues where your gameplay ideas don't have enough new content when compared to the previous titles. A good example for it is Prototype 2. If you can ignore its shitty story along with some of the gameplay nerfs, then I would say Prototype 2 is a pretty decent upgrade to Prototype 1. We got the tendrils, brawler control, a better side mission structure, and more. Overall, gameplay wise, not a bad sequel. However, the real issue I want to point out is, since Prototype 2 release date is about 3 years apart from Prototype 1, it does make sense with the amount of new content we have received in it. But with Prototype 3, this is something we definitely should not be doing. Almost 13 years have gone by since the second game. If Prototype would make a comeback, you damn sure should pour your heart into it. People expect a product that could blow them out of the water, not a decent sequel that is slightly better than the last one. That's not gonna cut it, okay? In other words, Prototype 3's gameplays needs to be very rich in content in order to justify the time people have spent waiting for it. If you're someone like me who wastes his time creating video games ideas, consider this before doing anything. On the other hand though, we have issue number 2, too much. This happens when you put way too many ideas into the game and overwhelm the players with gameplay features and mechanics. If you need an example, look no further than the Prototype 3 video from Purposeless Rabbit Holes. First off, I just want to say that I like his work. Quite a lot actually. In fact, some of his concepts are so good, I might even throw them into my own ideas video. Truly, the only thing I want to, criticize is he jammed in way too many gameplay ability in his version, especially with the offensive and defensive powers. If I remember correctly, in his video he proposed about 10 melee and 3 range powers, plus an additional 3 new armor sets or something, which is way too much for the average gamers. The thing is, with the amount of chaos that is happening in Prototype, almost no one would be able or want to constantly switch between this many powers during combat. What would end up happening is people would just abandon half of those powers and only concentrate on the ones that are most helpful to them, thus defeating the whole purpose of adding these new abilities into the game. If you want to make it work, these powers need to be well balanced, and there must be way more enemy types for you to make use of them. If not, I don't think bombarding the players with too many gameplay features is the way to go here. Lastly, let's talk about the third issue, too different. This one has a bit more of a complex side to it, so I'll dive right into our example, which of course is a Prototype 3 ideas video from White Light. I must admit, the Prototype 3 story that he came up with was pretty damn interesting, and for good measure, I may or may have not borrowed some of his ideas from my own version of the story, just wanna let you guys know. However, in regard to his gameplay stuff, I'm not really a fan of them. And don't get me wrong, they're not bad ideas or anything, but to me, his gameplay system is not going to fit in a sequel like Prototype 3 because of how vastly different it is when compared to the ones in previous titles. I personally think that when you plan on making a sequel story with a timeline set relatively close to the timeline of the last game, the gameplay of this sequel should follow the same path also. If not, you might risk alienating the core fan base and make them lose interest. And you know, I guess I understand his vision of gameplay. Like, this is Pariah, and Pariah needs to be more powerful and feel completely different than Mercer and Heller. I get that. But to me, Pariah doesn't have to be exactly that way. More powerful? Maybe. Different? Not necessarily. If you want to dive deeper into Pariah lore, up to this moment all the pieces of information related to his power are entirely a mystery. We still know pretty much nothing about him, aside from some speculation from Dr. McMullen. Therefore, to say Pariah is much stronger than Mercer and Heller is not 100% correct, to be honest. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is I don't hate his gameplay ideas, but I think they are more suited for the fourth prototype game, for example, where everything is set anew. New characters, new story, new world. That is where I would like to see his concepts coming to fruition. Prototype 3 though, not so much. Because while I agree the gameplay should be something unique, it shouldn't be too unique to the point of nearly unrecognizable. So, to summarize everything we've got so far, we need to create a gameplay system for Prototype 3 that is very rich in content, but not too rich that it overwhelms the players with features, but at the same time not too deviating from the older titles as well. It almost sounds like an impossible task, right? But don't worry guys, even though you may think I'm just a dude who likes to complain all the time, I'm also someone who likes to solve and make things better. So sit back, relax as I give you the perfect solution for this problem. Alright, here's what we're gonna do. We'll follow the philosophy of purposeless rabbit holes by adding an exuberant amount of features in the game, but instead of putting all of these features inside a single system like he did, they will be equally distributed into multiple systems, 3 to be exact. Why 3 you might ask, and what the hell do I mean by this? To answer them, let's go back to the previous question in the story section, where you asked me about the status of James Heller and Pariah. I believe by now, most of you guys have already kind of connected 2 dots together and know what I'm about to say, but for the few who still haven't, let me spell it out for you. We'll be able to play as not just 1, but 3 characters, meaning Alex Mercer, James Heller, and Pariah will all be the main character of Prototype 3. Sounds crazy? Let me explain. This solution gets so many things done at once. First, the game will feel much more content rich, since you will get to play as 3 characters with 3 different playstyles. I'll further discuss this in a bit. Second, you'll be able to add more stuff in the game without overloading the whole system, and since we have 3 now, there's not much need in replacing the original gameplay mechanics just for the sake of creating something new. And third, from the character choice standpoint, everyone will be happy with this. If you never played Prototype before or simply want to start fresh, go with Pariah. If you're an old friend of the series and want that authentic Alex Mercer experience, go with him instead. And if you're one of those who prefer to play as James Heller, go with him. With this, the gameplay will generally feel like a massive upgrade from the predecessors. There can be way more stories to tell, and every important character in the series will have the chance to shine. This is what I call a game sequel, one that is truly worthy of a Prototype 3 title. From here, some of you must be wondering, okay, it's great that I can play as 3 characters, but does it mean the amount of game content we need to be triple? Isn't it a bit too ambitious? Can something like this even be possible? My reply to that would be the Prototype franchise has been dormant for over a decade now, so of course a game of this magnitude should be created to make up for the time us fans have been waiting for it. And also, no, we don't have to literally triple every single gaming content in order to pull it off, okay? You'll understand why in a moment. Alright, for this next and final section, I will share with you guys some general concepts for my upcoming Prototype 3 video. Most of the interesting and juicy details won't appear here obviously, but I will share enough information for you to have a bit of grasp on what's to come. Let's start this off with that whole playstyle thing I've mentioned before. So when a game lets you pick between 3 characters to play, the gameplay needs to be different from one another, or else what is the point in choosing, right? Therefore I've created 3 distinctive playstyles for each of them. First is Pariah. On screen you will see his overall stats. The number can range from 1 to 10. 1 means least powerful or least effective, and 10 means most powerful or most effective. Pariah will receive the balanced playstyle. He has a very good damage output, and his speed and defense are rock solid as well. If you want a well-rounded experience with enough challenges to go along, choose Pariah. You will have a great time with him. Secondly, we have Alex Mercer. He gets a speed-oriented playstyle. From his stats, you can see his damage output is just as good as Pariah, but his speed is the best among the 3. Can't say the same for his defense though. He is what people call a high-risk, high-reward character. Very susceptible to damage, but very quick on the feet. You will always need to move around to play him effectively. Definitely the hardest one to master, but feel the best when you manage to do so. Choose Alex if you want the toughest challenges imaginable. And third, we have James Heller. His playstyle is defense-oriented. Once again, you can see he has the same damage output as the other 2, and although his speed is not that great, his defense gets the highest score among them. Heller certainly is on the slower side, but he makes up for it with his impenetrable defense, thus making him the easiest character to play. He's perfect for you if you're someone who doesn't like challenge and just want to vibe through the story or whatever, which basically means you're a game journalist.
Ha! Got him!
Oh, one more thing I want to clarify is that the portrayal of these characters is only applied for the gameplay, and not the lore, okay? They are much stronger and just as capable as the others under the right circumstances. You get to see a lot of it through the in-game cutscenes as an example. Next up, let's bring up offensive power for a second here. I spent quite some time in this video commenting on other people's ideas about this topic already, so I feel it's only fair to give you guys my own take as well. So what you're looking at right now is one of my caveman drawings that I made back in early 2020, way before this channel was even created. Pretty crazy, I know. Anyway, as you can see, these are the weapon wheels of our playable characters. In my version, there will be 6 offensive powers to use throughout the game instead of 5 like in the past. The 6 brand new powers of each character are located down at the bottom. I wouldn't be able to reveal the detail of their functionality in this video though, therefore just ignore them for now. You can also ignore those weirdly placed arrows at the center of the wheel there. They are not important to our discussion at the moment, so don't pay attention to them. On the upper region, these spots are reserved for the character's specific powers. Alex will have his muscle mass, Hello will have the tendrils, and Pariah? Well, Pariah will have his own unique power too. Aside from bringing them back to their original form, muscle mass and tendrils will also receive a few never before seen abilities. Further details will be shown on a later date. The remaining 4 spots are what I really want to focus on here. You notice that Alex, Pariah and Hello all possess the blade, whip fists, claws and hammer fists. There are a few reasons for this, one of which is similarity expression. Although the gameplay of these 3 characters need to be distinctive from one another, I think it would be nice to draw some sort of resemblance and give the players a stark connection between them. It's a psychological thing and it's a bit hard for me to explain, so you have to take my words for it. The second reason is to reduce the creative input. This one is simple enough, right? When you have a game with 3 playable characters and 6 weapons for each, that's a total of 18 individual weapons to keep track of. Over half of them will need to be made from scratch with new names, new functions, new everything. That's too much creative work to be put into and it can result in a disaster. So it is much easier to manage things when you do it this way. But do keep in mind that although these 4 powers are presented on all 3 characters, they will not feel the same on each person. They will have a different look, different attack and consume animation, and their stats won't be equal as well. For example, Pariah's claws are much faster than Hello's, but Hello's hammer fists hit way harder than Pariah's. Therefore, we'll be in favor of using a particular weapon in a character, but not in the other, thus creating these differences in gameplay that I was talking about. For the last reason, it actually kind of relates to these weird arrows, so once again, I wouldn't be able to give this part away. I wonder how many times I've said that already. Though I hope my upcoming Prototype 3 video will be worth the wait for you guys. I truly hope so. Before we end this, there's one more item I'd like to share with you. It's the overall story and gameplay structure. This is one hell of a complex and confusing subject to discuss, so I'll pull up another caveman drawing of mine to help illustrate my point. Okay, what you're seeing right now is my game.
What the fuck is this?
Yes, I am aware it looks like absolute dog shit, but I just want to push something out as quick as possible without putting too much thoughts into, so you guys will have to deal with it. Anyway, this is an oversimplified version of our game structure. It has pretty much everything compared to the real one, and I'll give you all the information you need to know using it. The first thing you'll notice right away is these 3 lines of color. They represent the character path you're going to choose. Dark red for Pariah, black for Alex, and orange for Hello. The green dots at the beginning of each line depict the start of the game. They will start at a separate location with exclusive cutscenes and all that good stuff. On the opposite side, we have the red dots, which of course show you the endgame. There will be several endings for each of them, depending on your actions in the game. Finally, you will see these grey dots located in the cross sections of the 3 lines. Here is where our main characters will interact. They may simply have a conversation, do mission together, or fight each other to the death even. And that's roughly how the story structure will go. Imagine it like a massive storyline being told in 3 different ways. Also, remember when I said we wouldn't have to triple the content for this game? This sketch kinda explained that, don't you think? You don't have to make everything from scratch for all 3 systems, and instead borrow and reuse the assets of each other to reduce the workload. Like in the grey dot areas, you can show the same interaction cutscenes of these characters. Or around the regions near the grey dots, you can create missions that are set in the same location but with different objectives to have a unique yet similar experience for the players. Exclusive missions and story arcs for every character are still a thing obviously, which are marked blue in these spots. One final point I want to make is that you will be the person who controls the fate of these characters. If let's say you choose to play as Alex Mercer, the Alex Mercer that you control will have a total different outcome to the Alex Mercer that appears in Pariah and James Hello's story arc, so on and so forth. Another example I can give is halfway through the story, there would be a mission where you went to a location to get a powerful weapon, and just one of them could come and claim it. So when the final arc came and these three finally beat the living shit out of each other, your chosen character would get the upper hand using the newly obtained weapon and change the course of history. Again, like I said, this is a very complex subject to tackle, and probably not easy to turn it into reality, but it would be so epic if they managed to pull it off. It may not be the best Prototype 3 concept idea of all time, but it certainly is the most logical one, as I believe it will be the game that satisfies the vast majority of gamers out there. I think the only potential problem people might have with my idea is, actually, you know what? I don't really think this as a problem, but more like a banter of some sort. I'll say it. It's the infighting in the Prototype community to decide which of the three story arcs is true canon. We would have Alex Mercer fans who say stuff like, Alex is the real OG, of course his arc is canon. And then James Heller fans came in and said, fuck you, you bunch of emo worshippers, Heller is way better than him. But then Pariah's fans appear out of nowhere and shit on both of them. Fuck you all, you old farts, this is our era now, embrace it little bitches. Yeah, it might go something like that. I mean, if it's just some light jabs between the fans, then it's fine. But if it's starting to get like personals and shit, then we might get ourselves into a bit of a trouble. Either way, it would be fucking hilarious if it were to happen. That I can assure you. So, on that note, it's time to finally wrap things up for today. Thank you all for joining me, I appreciate it a lot. As promised, my highly anticipated Prototype 3 ideas video will be scheduled to come out this year. I just don't know when exactly. If possible, I'd like to get it done before June, because if by some miracles there are going to be news of Prototype in this year's Xbox showcase, I would have to make a video about it and delay this one even further, which is something I really don't want to do. After that, I guess we eventually will get to the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, assuming if anyone here still cares about it. My primary goal in 2025 is to break my own record by uploading more than 2 videos a year. I'll try my best to make this happen. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
What do we do now?
What? The fuck you mean what do we do now? You're Athena, go figure that shit out yourself. Or how about this? How about you go to the Xbox headquarters and tell them to give us Prototype 3? Can you do that? Fucking mouse clicking motherfucker. What a stupid dumb bitch.